Imagine trusting the wrong adult for just 1 minute, nearly never making it home. Welcome back, viewers. If you're new here, I tell true and terrifying stories that remind us just how quickly the ordinary can become life-changing. What you're about to hear is something I survived, but barely. I was only a kid. This is what happened the day I was nearly kidnapped, possibly killed by someone pretending to be a family friend. This happened a long time ago, and a lot of the smaller details are admittedly hazy, but I remember the fear like it happened yesterday. I'll do my best to recall what I can and fill in the blanks based on how I remember it playing out. It was the last day of 4th grade, an exciting day, full of yearbook signatures, melted popsicles, and the promise of summer. At our school, 4th grade was still the year where students had to be picked up by a parent or approved adult. Starting in 5th grade, kids were allowed to walk home by themselves. That was something we all looked forward to. My mum always picked me up on the last day, but this time, my friend Dennis and I had made plans to hang out and celebrate the start of summer break. Dennis wasn't in my class that year, but we'd been friends since kindergarten. He was dismissed from a different hallway than mine, so we agreed to meet outside. I remember standing outside the school doors with my teacher, Miss Blue, supervising as kids were collected by their parents. I scanned the crowd for Dennis's dad. Then I heard a voice call out my name, "Tommy, Tommy." I turned and saw a man waving at me. He smiled and introduced himself as Dennis's uncle, saying he'd be giving me a ride. I didn't see Dennis with him, but I didn't question it at first. I went over to Miss Blue and told her I was being picked up. She asked, "Where is he, sweetie?" I pointed toward the man, who gave a quick wave. Without much hesitation, Miss Blue nodded and let me go with him. He led me away from the school, talking fast and nervously. I remember how jittery he was. His words stumbled over each other, and he walked so fast I had to jog just to keep up. As we moved through the parking lot, he explained that Dennis's dad had to work late and that he was stepping in to help. I nodded, trying to keep my backpack from sliding off as I followed. His car was a dark red hatchback. It wasn't until I sat in the back seat that I finally asked, "Where's Dennis?" Without missing a beat, he said Dennis was already at his house waiting. Something about that didn't feel right. Why would we leave from the same school but not get picked up together? The ride felt too long. Our town wasn't big. My house was a 5-minute walk from school, but we'd been driving at least 10. We passed unfamiliar streets. He kept talking, asking me about sports and what I liked learning in school, but I barely responded. When we got to his house, it looked normal. Nothing spooky or broken down, but inside, it was disturbingly dark. Every curtain was drawn, blocking out all sunlight, and the only light came from a weak lamp in the corner of the living room. I asked again, "Where's Dennis?" He gave me this weird, twitchy smile and said something like, "He's probably downstairs playing video games. Wait here, I'll get him." He disappeared into another room. I heard a door open, then footsteps descending into what I assumed was the basement. At that point, panic truly set in. I knew something was wrong. I quietly went to the front door and tried to open it, but it was locked. Not just locked like a lock that needed a key from the inside. My heart was pounding. I'd never felt terror like that before. I ran into the kitchen, frantically searching for a phone. I found one mounted on the wall and immediately dialed 911. In a whisper, I said, "Please come to this house. I've been kidnapped." They responded, and I hung up without another word. Hiding the phone under a towel on the counter, I rushed back into the living room just as I heard him coming back up. He called down from the basement, "Come down, Dennis is down here." Then silence. Then, again, more insistently, "Tommy." I didn't respond. Eventually, he came back upstairs, his eyes darting around. "You okay?" he asked. I looked him straight in the eye and asked, "Can I go home?" That's when everything changed. His phony smile dropped. He walked toward me slowly, then suddenly grabbed my wrist hard and started dragging me toward the basement. I cried and screamed. He yelled, "I'll let you go if you behave." I stopped struggling. He shoved me toward the stairs and slammed the basement door shut behind me, locking it. I descended into a dark, unfinished basement with cold concrete floors and a single exposed light bulb overhead. It was exactly what you'd imagine the worst-case scenario to look like. I sat, silent, barely breathing. I could hear him walking around upstairs, then something a doorbell. Once, twice, 3 times, then pounding. More pounding. I held my breath, unsure if I should yell yet. Then I heard voices, multiple voices, and a loud crash, like the front door being broken down. That's when I screamed. I pounded on the basement door and yelled for help. Finally, it flew open. A police officer pulled me into safety. I'll never forget the moment I saw those red and blue lights outside. The man was arrested on the spot, shoved into the back of a squad car in handcuffs. When my mum arrived, she was hysterical. Dennis's dad was at the school, trying to figure out what happened. It turns out the man was a co-worker of Dennis's father and had somehow overheard that he'd be picking us up. He used that opportunity to prey on a child. To this day, I don't know how he knew what I looked like. I've never asked. I try not to think about it. My mum and I went to therapy for months. She never forgave the school for letting me leave with a stranger. And if I hadn't thought to call 911 when I did, I know I wouldn't be here today. That was 17 years ago. That man could be out of prison now, walking free. But I'm still here. And I still remember. It was junior year of high school, and the last day of school had finally come. That electric feeling of summer freedom was in the air, even if the skies didn't show it. The weather was absolutely miserable grey. Clouds rolled over the sky. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and a steady downpour had started by mid-morning. A lot of people cut school early that day or didn't show up at all. My friends and I were some of the former. We left right after lunch period, soaked as we sprinted to our friend Eddie's car. Originally, there had been talk about hitting the beach to celebrate the last day of school, but the storm quickly squashed those plans. Instead, our smaller, tight-knit group decided to get a little adventurous. There was an old, abandoned elementary school on the other side of town, shut down for over a decade and scheduled to be demolished later that year. We'd heard stories about it for years, but none of us had actually gone inside, with nothing better to do and craving something memorable. We made the spontaneous decision to check it out for ourselves. Eddie had his license and was the default driver for most of our dumb teenage excursions. He drove us to the old school, which sat quietly in the middle of a residential neighborhood, far from any main roads or foot traffic. The rear parking lot was the perfect spot to park unnoticed, surrounded on 3 sides by overgrown trees and brick walls. There were no cameras, and on a stormy afternoon like this, the place felt like a ghost town. The school wasn't boarded up or reinforced, just locked. And Eddie, being Eddie, popped his trunk and pulled out a baseball bat. I remember feeling a knot form in my stomach as he approached the window near the back entrance. Even over the sound of the rain, the sharp crack of the bat hitting glass made me flinch. I kept glancing toward the nearby houses, sure someone would poke their head out and call the cops, but no one did. Eddie gave it a few good swings, cleared the shards from the frame, and waved us over like it was nothing. One by one, we climbed through the broken window and dropped into the musty classroom on the other side. The moment I stepped in, it hit me. We were standing in what used to be a 4th or 5th grade classroom. Desks still lined the room, faded. Posters still clung to the walls, and forgotten school supplies lay scattered across the floor. It was eerie. The building had clearly been untouched for years, yet it still carried the echoes of children's voices, laughter, and lessons from a different time. Now it was a cold, hollow shell, made even more surreal by the booming thunder outside. There was no electricity inside, just the flickering beams of our phone, flashlights and faint daylight bleeding in through the dirty windows. We began exploring the hallways, shuffling from classroom to classroom, our wet sneakers squeaking with every step. Everything inside was decaying: rusty lockers, peeled paint, collapsed ceiling tiles. The air was thick with dust and mildew. It felt like we were exploring a forgotten relic of the past, but also like we shouldn't be there at all. Then, as we moved into one of the far wings of the school, a sound echoed down the hall. We froze. It was distant but unmistakable, like a door creaking open or something heavy shifting. We turned off our flashlights and stood in silence, eyes darting in every direction. A flash of lightning briefly lit the hallway, but nothing was there. Still, we couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. I turned around to check the hallway behind us, and that's when I saw it. Something just barely sticking out from one of the classroom doorways. I asked my friends to aim their flashlights in the same direction. When we all pointed our lights at the doorframe, whatever it was pulled back into the room. It was fast, too fast, too fast. We all froze, whispering "what the hell" to each other, and then bolted. We sprinted down the next hallway and ducked into the first classroom we found. Clearly, a kindergarten room, based on the tiny chairs and bright colors. We slammed the door shut, turned off our lights, and crouched. In the dark, our hearts pounding. Rain hammered the windows, thunder shook the walls. Then we heard it. The doorknob clicking, the door slowly creaked open. It moved painfully slow until it was fully ajar. No one stood in the doorway at first, but then, just barely visible, we saw a shape just ahead, peeking around the corner, staring straight into the room. It didn't say anything, didn't move, just stared with a stillness that felt deeply unnatural. I immediately spoke up, apologizing, telling whoever it was that we were leaving. The head didn't flinch. Eddie asked, "Do you work here?" Still no response. Eddie didn't wait. He ran to the window, forced it open just enough, and slipped through, one by one. My friends followed, but I was frozen. Before I crawled out, I turned to look one last time. The head was still there, staring. I scrambled through the window, my mind racing with thoughts of it lunging forward to grab my leg, but it didn't. We ran straight to Eddie's car, jumped in, and sped away through the storm without a single word. That building was torn down just a few months later. Now it's a clean, quiet park where kids play, most of them never knowing what used to be there. To this day, we still wonder who or what that was. A squatter, a worker, or something else entirely. We never went back to find out honestly. I think that's for the best. When I was a freshman in college, I took a chemistry class that completely kicked my ass. It was one of those huge general ed classes, rows of lab tables grouped in fours, packed with confused undergrads. I sat at a middle table on the far left, side all the way toward the back. Sitting next to me was a guy named Zach. He stood out instantly, not in a good way. He gave off serious Reddit moderator vibes. You know the type, awkward, socially off, probably lurking on niche forums all night. Zach was about 5'8", slightly overweight, and had this scraggly, patchy beard that made him look like he was trying to grow one for years and just never succeeded. He wore oversized hoodies, had constantly greasy hair, and always carried a backpack filled to the brim with God knows what. But as weird as he was good at chemistry, like, really good. I think he was just naturally gifted in school. We started talking more once he noticed how badly I was struggling, and surprisingly, he was really helpful. He offered to let me copy his homework, and even during tests, he'd subtly position his answers where I could see them. He never made it weird. In fact, he was pretty emotionless most of the time, just robotic and quiet. Eventually, Zach asked for my number to send me study material, and I gave it to him without thinking twice. He wasn't creepy, just socially awkward, and honestly, I was grateful for the help. Fast forward to the final day of the semester. After class, Zach turned to me and asked if I wanted to go on a date. I was stunned. I'd never gotten even a hint of flirtation from him, and I didn't feel anything remotely romantic toward him. Still, he'd helped me all semester, so I tried to be as kind as possible. I told him I'd be going to Miami for the next couple of weeks to visit family. He immediately said, "What about when you get back?" That caught me off guard. I panicked and just said something like, "Yeah, maybe." He nodded and said cool in this awkward, slow voice, like it was the most intense moment of his life. The vibe after that was painfully weird. As soon as class ended, I bolted. I was a commuter, so I left campus straight for home. Later that night, I went out with friends to celebrate the end of the semester. While we were at a bar, I got a text from Zach. "When are you going to Miami?" I laughed it off with my friends and told them everything, how this guy saved my GPA, but now wanted a date. We joked that I should go on the date just to be nice, and I said something sarcastic like, "Oh yeah, for sure." But I never responded to his text. The next morning, I woke up hungover to 2 follow-ups from Zach, one with just question marks, and the next one saying, "You're going to ignore me now that you don't need me anymore, right?" I responded, "Hey, I'm sorry, I was packing. I'm going to Miami today." He replied immediately, "Okay." I thought that would be the end of it. But that night, while out again with friends, I got another text from Zach that chilled me to the bone. It read, "I thought you said you were going to Miami tonight." I froze. I showed my friends the text, and we were all freaked out. I responded, "What do you mean?" And he shot back with, "Nothing, forget it. I just don't like liars." Now, I was officially scared. I scanned the bar, thinking maybe he was nearby, watching. I didn't see him, but I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. I didn't text him back. That night, around 1 a.m., right as I got home and was kicking off my shoes, I heard knocking at the door. I was alone. I asked, "Who is it?" And Zach's voice came from the other side. "It's me." I panicked. I shouted through the door, "Leave now, or my dad's coming out, and he's not going to be nice." That seemed to scare him off, because he didn't knock again. I called everyone my dad, my friends just freaking out. My dad told me to go to the police, but before I even got the chance, I received the most deranged, lengthy text I've ever read. It was like a manifesto. Here's a sample of what it said. "I'm feeling a lot of emotions right now after being used by someone for months and then lied to, and hurt and anger are two of them. I thought from the start of the semester that our chemistry was through. The roof, no pun intended. I must say I am hurt that you would make up something as elaborate as a 2-week-long Miami trip just to avoid going out with me. I noticed the way you looked at me sometimes in class, and I can't pretend there wasn't a hint of interest. All I'm asking for at this point is one date. I'm not asking for your hand in marriage, though I'd be quite an ideal husband. I know how much I have to offer, much more than these losers all over campus. I'm willing to come by and talk about it in person. I'm only making this offer once. It ended with yours truly, Zach." I was beyond disturbed. I sent the message to everyone I knew. I called my dad again, and he took matters into his own hands. He texted Zach a furious message and tried calling him several times. Zach never picked up. The next morning, I went straight to the police station with screenshots of all the messages. They took it seriously and said they'd reach out to him. But Zach ghosted everyone, even the cops. He vanished. No more texts, no sightings on campus. It was like he disappeared into the internet cave he crawled out of. To this day, I've never heard from him again. But I now know what it feels like to have a real stalker. And that fear, it sticks with you. Thanks for watching. If you've ever dealt with a situation like this or have thoughts about what I should have done differently, drop a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more true stories. Stay safe out there.